This week on the Three Rings podcast.
I want to see kids achieving their potential, not coming out too early that detriments them.
Their main priority now is surviving and trying to make as much profit as possible.
There's always this saying in our industry that the qualification doesn't matter, your training does. And it's true, but equally it's wrong. The qualification should matter, and we need to look at how we make that matter.
But in my head, I was like, I'm not good enough. I need more time. Welcome to the 27th episode of the Three Rings podcast. My name's Stuart Bishop, and I'm here with my fellow director, Bailey J. Muir.
Before we get going, subscribe to the channel, give us a like on the video, and turn your notification bell so you know all about next week.
This week's topic is, should performers who are not good enough be allowed to graduate from colleges? Right. Now, we've got a folder of topics that we keep adding. Every time we see something, we add to it. And the one we're about to do now, I swear we were going to do it a few weeks ago, but we then...
Yeah, we were going to do... It's before we decided we were going to do a season 2. Then 26 was going to come in that week that we took a gap between the seasons, and it was going to be in that episode. But funnily enough, our list of topics, this has actually been on there from the very, very start. Because before we even started doing these podcasts, that was a topic that we came up with basically this time last year, because we were in graduation season. And we're like, oh, that'd be so good to do if we were filming the podcast now. So it's kind of come like full circle, full year, where we're back in the right time period to do the topic, which is interesting. Well, interesting to us anyhow.
Wow. So, let's say what this topic is.
Yeah.
Should performers who I can't believe we're asking this because let me say it first. Should performers who are not good enough be allowed to graduate? It's such a kind of topic. Why are we asking this?
It's kind of directly within the question. Obviously,
Can I say what we put as the reason why, and then you explain it more. We put in, why are we asking this? It says, we feel too many performers are graduating not to a high standard. Oh, that is just so damning. Go on, talk to me.
Yeah, well, I think everyone in our industry has seen it, because everyone I talk to, you talk to, all has the same observation that the college training is going downhill. And with this, then obviously the standards of the graduates we see coming through is going down. I think one of the problems in our industry is obviously even the thing of whether you graduate or not is so perceptive as to who's good, who's not so good, who hasn't reached their potential yet, that it's hard to really then build marking criteria where on a uni course you can fail it because your grade weren't good enough. So within our industry, even your grading really, if you were to do it, is perceptive. So that's probably a factor as to why everyone's allowed to graduate. But it spirals back to another thing I think we wrote down, which is where the industry has such an oversaturation problem, then is it unnecessarily damaging to keep churning out more people into that industry who aren't ready for that industry? One question I came up with yesterday when we were planning this is, why don't the colleges sometimes hold someone back a year if they think you absolutely have the potential, but you're just not quite reached the level you're ready for the industry? Why do you think holding someone back a year isn't a thing, Stuart?
Well, I think everything comes down to money. It's all to do with money. In the end of the day, I think, and I didn't feel like this when I was at college, so I feel like there's been a change in the last 25 years, and there definitely has. I feel that colleges, their main priority now is surviving and trying to make as much profit as possible. Now, back in the day, it felt like colleges had a family kind of feel to it. And yes, they were trying to make money, but there wasn't this feeling of get as many people. It felt very kind of, I mean, I remember at college, it was very rare when someone new was added, to top up the year group numbers. It wasn't really, whether that was because there just wasn't as many people wanting to join colleges, I don't know. But it feels like now there's always going to be so many. And yeah, I mean, it's got to be do with money. You don't want to, if you stop, if let's say you turn around and go, oh, I want to leave. Well, the first thing colleges are worried about is, well, you've paid, you're gonna have to pay, because you were asking about, you said yesterday, I don't know if you remember, about if you were to audition people, is it right that they just go straight into the first year, as opposed to saying, well, you're good enough to go straight into the third year? And I was like, well, they don't want that. That's 1 year of money. Now, I might be very cynical of this. So let me take my reasoning and saying money away for a second. And then my other feeling, which is basically I'm looking at them and physically seeing that they are not good enough. It's not the standard of the third years that are coming out of yesteryear. So if the third years of yesteryear struggle to work, how on earth are they thinking that these new third years are going to work?
That's it, because I wouldn't say the actual industry has become easier. Like, if you root back to the era you were coming out of college, Stuart, maybe the work on stage then, obviously you were kind of the back end of Brian Rogers, Alan Harding, etc., in their like prime of their choreography career. There were some intense routines. What we've come to on a commercial level now isn't as technically challenging, but there's not been a major shift in that in the last 15 years as to why a graduate 15 years ago had any reason to be substantially better than one today. I don't really know where, well, I was going to say I don't really know where that's come from, but it roots me back to the same thing you're saying about the money, to be honest, where we've had this conversation about Move It before, I think in one of our first ever episodes, which when Move It came around, made all those colleges compete. Suddenly then you've got to have the big building to stand out the flashy teachers. Your costs have gone up, so therefore you need more students to actually just stay afloat. And I think the quality of the training has been lost from the need to have big year groups, probably. Which,
go on.
I was just gonna rant off saying which the problem probably exists within that culture of the colleges, which doesn't feel directly attached to should a graduate be allowed to come out or not, but I think it's all derivative of that issue.
It is all linked because, what we should be talking about is the standard, which we'll get onto in a second. But it's this thing of, if we don't have enough students, we can't pay for that theatre. We can't pay for the big buildings. We can't. So they don't want to stop or encourage people to leave early. Okay, you leave early, but you're still paying. You're still paying your 3 years. And the people who are good enough to leave early, they are a risk. So business sense says take on people who need the 3 years training, not someone who they're not thinking about, well, that person will get jobs and represent us brilliant. That's a secondary thought to, we need the money to survive because we've got huge buildings now. Now, when there was only small buildings and only 30 in a year and that, everything's profit-wise is smaller, obviously, but outgoings are smaller and more intense feeling, and I think you had more chance when it's more intense training to be better, and hence why we haven't really had this argument before. Should people graduate? But the real thing really is this kind of, I don't know, I don't like to call it the woke agenda, but it's this tippy, tappy, very, very kind of, what's the word, kid gloves. They want people to get through those 3 years to pay the 3 years of fees.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to tell you, Bailey, that you're a little bit fat or your hair's a little bit this or you need to really come on, you need to push it. However you want to say someone needs to improve. Back in the day, it was you're fat, you're this, that was how it was. Nowadays, obviously, you can't say any of that. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying that the medium hasn't been found because it's not producing good graduates.
Yeah. There's things lost in that, because there's stuff would change in the language of like where 20 years ago it would have been you're fat, which it's a great thing that language has been lost. However, there's an edge of sometimes the meaning underneath that weren't being pitched properly 20 years ago, which you've then also lost the meaning of. I think we had this conversation in an episode about the ballet schools at one point in the last series, which is a lot of the time that thing of you're too fat, lose weight, is completely the opposite advice of what's actually intended, which is like tone up, which in a sense actually means gain weight. And it's the language that's made that abusive. Removing the language is great, but we need to bring the element back in of the truth of what was being asked for. That obviously comes with having, I guess, more educated teachers. Not necessarily more educated in how well they know dance, because I don't think that's changed, but educated as people, understanding communication and how their communication affects people. There's a great improvement happened there. But I think we're still at that point where like all this red tape's been put on and we've not yet gone, okay, the red tape has worked, we can now half relax it to then let the good elements come back in. There's a halfway point to be found there.
You're saying they've got rid of the bad stuff, the fat talk, and they haven't replaced it with the inspirational, motivational. It's not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's like to fix the issue, you had to take away 100%. But within that 100%, there was actually only 50% that was really the issue. So now you've taken it away, and now you can bring back the good 50%.
Okay, so let's talk about then. What is it that we're seeing right now that's made us have this conversation? What do you want to see as an agent or a casting director? What is it that you're expecting from someone who's had 3 years dance training?
I don't know if I'm necessarily answering the second half of that question in this, but what I want to see is dancers coming out who are ready to work, not dancers coming out who look like they potentially need another year or another 2 years, another 3 years. Because I'm seeing a lot of people, and it's not just necessarily this year, this is the past couple of years, who the potential is absolutely there, but they're being released at a stage where I'm looking at them and going, you could have had a career, but your college hasn't given you what you need, and quite possibly because of that, you're possibly never going to work at all and never reach your potential, which is unnecessary. If we could actually just change it and hold people back a year, give them the extra bit they need, which I guess in itself is a phrasing of we need niche training again. It has to train the individual, which reverts back to this 100 people in a year versus 20, 30 in a year in your day. When it's 20 or 30 in a year, you can train the intensity that student needs that in 3 years they should achieve. Because we kind of touched on this, I think. But where I was saying to you when we were planning this yesterday of, why aren't some students in the first year, when you get these few amazing ones, fast-tracked straight to third year? I think in today's world, that's probably needed because the training isn't tailored. So they are benefit more from being in the third year class. Whereas in your day at college, Stuart, where actually all 20 in first year, it was small enough for them all to have their own tailored training within first year, then they can all grow at their own rates on their own paths. I don't think that is really enabled and encouraged in today's training. And I think that's where it's been lost. So for me, what I'd like to see either is reducing the numbers back down or being willing to go, you need another year. Here's an option to stay with us. I want to see kids achieving their potential, not coming out too early that detriments them. How about you, Stuart? What is it you would like to see?
Well, I mean, there's two things which come straight in my head. A, it's the physique, and B, I'll just say pirouettes. It's massive for me. I've gone to college shows where we get invites all the time. We don't go to many, but whenever we do, I'm always hoping that the technique is getting better and not less. Now, I know they don't need to use so much technique in the actual performance, but
however, just to chip in on that, they don't need as much today. But the colleges are training them for hopefully a 20-year career. Some point in them 20 years, a trend's going to go back on itself. They need it even if they don't need it right now.
That's such an important point. It really is. We never actually said that. We've always kind of, I suppose, in a way, be thinking, well, maybe we're coming to the end. Dancers won't ever need, but you're right. It does. It's ebbs and flows. And even if it's not going to be seen in performance, it's like, you wouldn't just for your boxing training, just do boxing fights. You do technique. And it's the same with everything. That technique builds into then what you're able to do as a performance, whether it is pirouettes or kicks or anything. But I say the pirouettes because, oh man, the amount of show reels we get sent and people stick pirouettes in. And it's like, well, listen, if you can't do pirouettes, don't put them in. Just don't put them in, because there's no point showing falling out of 2 pirouettes. And that's what we're seeing at the moment all the time. 2 pirouettes and falling out of them. And it's just like, in my day, the boys used to have pirouette kind of competitions. It was like, if you couldn't do over, 5, 6, 7, we used to go for it. It's shocking to me. And when I saw that we were when we chose should performance, because I've seen it, funny enough, like you said, it's been there right at the very start of when we've been creating these topic folders. Every time I thought, maybe we do that, I'm just thinking, is it going to be a bit too controversial? Should we be careful what we say there? But it's like, if we had a college, I wouldn't want anyone graduating. Let's say it's Stuart and Bailey College, right? Well, look at Dax. We should have asked this question to Dax, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Maybe if we get him on in the future, once the college has had a few years going, we could ask this question,
I mean, I think Dax is the kind of character who would actually be like, yeah, you need another year. Let us do what's best for you. Because there is a point in part 2 of his podcast where he's talking about his auditions and he's discussing, I can't remember, it was auditions for the college. And he was saying there was one student who come in who was phenomenal, but they just couldn't, amongst themselves, find where that person would actually place in the industry. So then they went, do you know what? You're amazing, but we're not going to offer you this and take the money off you because we don't think we can actually get you anywhere as great as you are. And I think that's such a healthy thing. That's what's needed. Panels on the auditions, teachers who are actually looking at students and going, okay, I see where your potential actually is. I see what you can do, and I'm going to train you for that. There's no point getting a dancer in the room who's clearly a hip-hop dancer and trying to turn them into a soloist in the ballet. It's crazy. you've got to be able to analyse a student as an individual to then build their path, teach them the bits that they need to know, and also teach them how to, this is a very mean you thing, but then how to market themselves. Back to the pirouettes. If you can't do a double pirouette, then don't put it in your show reel. But equally, your teacher should be saying to you, you can't do a double pirouette, so this genre and this genre isn't for you. But this genre, you don't need the pirouette. So let's focus towards that. Let's build your brand around that and educate you how to think about that. So when it comes to doing your show reel, you don't even think twice of whether you should put that pirouette in. You know that's not your brand. It comes back to the individual. You've got to be tailored to them. And I think what Dax demonstrated in that point he made about his that auditionee, he's doing that, and he's one of the few. So obviously I don't want to speak for him, but I can very much see from that story he gave, it's the same wavelength we're trying to put across here.
I would just be embarrassed if we had Bailey and Stuart College and we had our first graduates. I wouldn't be inviting agents. No way. Like if I mean, obviously we'd do, you know, because that's what the students expect, because that's now the thing. But so many of them aren't ready for agents. They get onto agents, shit agencies basically, who will take anyone, and it gives them a false hope. But yeah, I'd be so embarrassed, you know, if people saw my students not being able to do certain things. And I know pirouettes aren't, you know, you're not really gonna. Well, I don't know. You are in musical theatre. There's gonna be times where you're gonna use it.
Oh yeah, in pretty much all musical theatre, you're gonna need at least a triple.
Yeah. So yeah, it's for me beyond the technique. It's just the whole athleticism thing. You know, I might be a dinosaur and I might be wrong, but to me, it's unhealthy. You know, why you've done 3 years of dance training and you're still fat like that. Whose fault is that? I mean, that's got to be the college's fault.
Well,
but if the college can't actually say it, then it goes beyond their fault, doesn't it? Because they're not allowed to say you're fat.
I think what's important to put in here, though, as well, is there isn't really a dance course that exists unless you're going down the full-on contemporary route. And actually, a lot of these like musical theatre colleges, which our dance colleges are, like often we'll think of Wilkes as a dance college because we're coming from the dance side of the industry, but actually they're just as musical theatre. Their course says musical theatre. In that world, actually someone in there may be the world's greatest actor and vocalist, and they're never going to need to dance in their career. So actually, when you go and watch as an agent, if they're not perfectly athletic to have a dance career, probably because that's not even what they're trying to do. So I think that's important to put in there as well, because there's almost 2 genres of dance now. I don't think there is dancers who don't fit the athletic bracket getting the jobs that actually only the athletic dancers can do. But we've kind of split where there's the athletic side of the industry that's more of a sports version of dance, and then there's entertainment dance. So obviously everyone can dance, training or not. It's enjoying movement and stuff you're seeing in music videos or on TV shows, stuff like that. Some of it is more entertainment dance. It's about the enjoyment of it. And I think that's fine in its place. But you're never going to send that person on a 9-month tour doing 8 shows a week all around the world because they're not built to sustain it. So I think there still is a place for an athletic dancer, but I think it's the colleges, again, knowing the individual to go, is your niche athletic dancer? If so, let's build you for that. But also knowing there's other people that aren't athletic dancers, so let's not try and make them that. It's putting people on the right path. But then, to root this off, I think also this comes down to then the way colleges showcase their graduates. If someone's not trying to have a dance career, then why are you presenting them dancing to dance agents? Because it's just then giving your college a bad look. Show each agent what they want to see. Here's our people who are trying to go a commercial route, so we'll send them to the commercial agents. We'll do a showcase for the commercial agents. These ones doing musical theatre, only send them to the musical theatre agents, do the musical theatre show. The separation needs to be found in training. So I think sometimes as a commercial agent, you sat there going, there's no one for me, because the colleges haven't actually thought about who they're putting that on for. It's almost like we need separate versions, so everyone actually, when they go, is able to find something. Because again, you said we don't go to many showcases.
Yeah.
I think a reason for that is there's no showcase that's ever really marketed as, these are our commercial dancers doing commercial dance. We're so used to turning up and be like, I've not even been able to see what I needed to see. I've just wasted 2 hours of my day. There needs to be something implemented to put the students in the right place and also put the agents in the right place at the right time.
Yes. It's, if you've got too many people, you just haven't got the time to think about everyone individually. Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I think for me it comes down to integrity and respect, and it's like if I went to a hospital and I talked to a nurse, I would expect the nurse to know what she's talking about, to be trained. If I go anywhere, I expect them, and I just feel like, how can you feel good as a dancer if you know that okay, when I went out as a dancer, I left college, I remember thinking, there are a few things here that I'm not the best at. I haven't got this down. So I did more ballet classes. I learned new styles, locking, popping. I was like, wow, okay, I can do a bit of breakdance, but I've never seen these styles. So I went out and added all these things to me. And I remember at the time thinking, well, I've got to have a good body. Got to have a good body. I don't want anyone to think I'm a slob or whatever. Where I'm not, I don't want to say that nowadays people don't care as much about themselves. But if no one's watching or no one's going to see your body, or, because back in the day, every audition, it'd be, right, boys, tops off. Like, probably because the choreographer's gay and he wants to see our butts, but see who he wants to sleep with later. But it was a pride thing. Yeah, right, I want to get my body. I want to have the best body. I want to have the most pirouettes. I want to be the best. I don't know if people really give a shit.
I think it's back to what I was saying of athletic dancers, entertainment dancers. We've got two genres now. When you were coming out, really, there was only the athletic dancer. And to create a parallel that might put into context more, if we look at like chefs as an industry, your entertainment chefs, your Gordon Ramsays, ones you see sat on MasterChef, etc., actually drop them in like some sort of Frankie and Benny's restaurant with 50 tables and just go, okay, run it. They're probably going to go to absolute shit because they're not working chefs. But pick up the chef from Frankie and Benny's and drop them on TV, they're going to go to shit because they're not made for entertainment. I think the thing is now we have two genres. And that is probably a hard thing to get your head around as old school. But it's then working out how to position those two genres, working out who fits in which, and how to present each of them. There's a separation in the genre once you're out in the work. That separation doesn't yet exist on the college level. I think that is a problem. The college level hasn't quite caught up to the current industry.
It's interesting because when I graduated, I actually stayed for another year because
really?
I didn't feel good enough. I only did another 6 months because then, even though I didn't feel good enough, I was starting to go to London because Charlotte, who was my girlfriend, she had left and she was getting success. So she was then saying, well, why don't you come and stay with me? And look, I've got an audition. So gradually I got there, but in my head I was like, I'm not good enough. I need more time. But I don't know if they do it now. I was just told, well, yeah, you can just come and do classes for free. I don't know if colleges would be so kind of, yeah, you can come do another year for free if you want, because
I've never known a college do it. Funnily enough, when I was training, Mark Webb used to let people come and drop in his class for free at college. I maybe shouldn't be saying this on here because I don't know if the college knew about that or not. But there was an element of it. But again, this comes down to the teachers who care and the ones that are just there for a pay packet in the nicest possible way. Someone like Mark, you always knew no one could care more than Mark.
Well, when you're leaving and there's only, with us, there was only 8 of us left, from a small group anyway, which started off about 30, just over 30, I think. They really cared. It was like we were a family member. They really wanted to know what everyone was doing. Now, when there's 200 of you, there's just no possible way they might not even know everyone's name, let alone, go on.
Do you think there's an element that they had to care more when you were at college as well? Because reputationally, 30 graduates coming out, at that moment, everyone's going to know if those graduates worked or not. Now 100 coming out, you can't really keep track of did that graduate class work or not. So actually, your brand is less at risk.
It's just figures picked out, isn't it? This whole 99%, 100% of our performers who graduate work. It's one of these things of, for a fact, if they had those stats over, let's say, even 5 years, let alone, I'm 25, nearly 25 years deep into my career, and obviously I think I'm the only one who's left. Now, over 25 years, okay, that's not so bad. But over 10 years, 5 years, what would you expect if you were paying? Well, you did. I suppose it's a question for parents. What would parents, if they're paying for their son or daughter to go to college, how long are they expecting for that 30 grand, 20 grand, or however much they spend? What's the realistic expectation of how long a career should be for that amount of money?
Well, I think it depends what genre you're looking for your kid to go into. In dance, 15 years, because it's short-lived, but obviously you would then have a hope they're either then going to become a dance teacher or a choreographer, etc., and stay in the world. Whereas if it's musical theatre, you'd be within your rights to say 60, 70, 80 years. In a sense, every person going into first year should be expecting to have a job in this industry in some form until they choose to retire. That doesn't necessarily mean on stage, but they should be in the performing arts, in the entertainment industry in some capacity, should they wish.
Because I think there's a huge disparity between saying people are working and actually whether they're having a career or not. Because, anyone can get a job. Anyone can. There are shit jobs out there that will take anyone. So it's like, I feel like when they say, 100% or 90% of our people who graduate have got a job, it's like, well, okay, they might have got a job, but let's have a look at those stats in 5 years' time. How many of them are still in the industry? Within a year, let's say you have 100 graduate, probably within a year, over half of them within a year have started the process of leaving or have left.
Yeah. But I think just giving the statistics alone almost lacks detail. Because it's way too easy. You can say 100% of your students signed with an agent, but then they may have never heard from that agent again. Hypothetically speaking, some of these colleges that have an in-house agency, if they just represent them one day longer than they graduated, you can say that they all had an agent. It doesn't give you really a great picture. It's just a great headline. I think this is where, for someone looking at which college they should go to and stuff, it's actually really important 3-4 years before you're actually wanting to go and attend to start tracking the graduates yourself and keep an eye on everyone. The colleges are never going to tell you every single person's in and out of their journey. So you've got to know it. You've got to do your research.
So should performers who are not good enough be allowed to graduate? Bailey, one word answer.
No.
I don't know. It just
if they don't have the potential, they should have never got into college. And if they have the potential, they should stay there until they achieve it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're failing a student.
Yeah.
At least have the option of staying until they achieve it. Obviously,
Well,
if you give them an extra year, that kid is going to have to pay for that. I'm not saying colleges should just be like, yeah, stay for free. But they should be given the option. They should be given the right advice.
Yeah. Or given it some kind of major discount. Look, we failed. We haven't got you good enough. You've still got love handles.
And I think it's important to also, that you say there, we failed.
Yeah.
There's also a difference to make there with the colleges knowing we failed this one. They've done everything. They've been here every class and they've not achieved it. So we'll give them the option. Because I do hear stuff now with kids who've turned up for maybe 20 classes in their 3 years. Well, those ones are not given the option. They should just be told, you never got off your ass. You are failing this. You are not graduate.
That begs the question, actually. It's like us as graduates, us as agents, should we be, it should be, right, these are the people who have passed with full honours or passed with these marks. Because we're just being told they've graduated.
I think, again, we've said this in an episode before, but the fact that the colleges have to teach a sort of curriculum-based qualification, for example, it's all like a degree that then has to kind of as close to as it can match uni marking, or a BTEC level 5 that then has to mark any other BTEC's grading. It doesn't fit our industry. You can't, because art is subjective, you can't just go, you've got that question wrong, so you failed your paper and therefore failed your course. So we almost need our own marking system to then allow the marks to matter. There's always this saying in our industry that the qualification doesn't matter, your training does. And it's true, but equally it's wrong. The qualification should matter, and we need to look at how we make that matter.
Well, it matters in every other industry.
Yeah.
If you're a lawyer and they're looking at, right, what's he got in his, if he failed, he didn't get his degree, he got a one, I don't know, I never went to university, but he got a 2-2 or one or a first or whatever. I think the first is the best one, isn't it?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. You've got no idea. But you've got to get these grades to be able to get good jobs. They proper people, proper organisations, they do look at these type of things.
Yeah.
Where for us, it's just, they've graduated. It's just a line on their CV that they went to this college. It doesn't tell us anything about how good. But I guess it comes down to our own individual eye. And this is the reason we're having this conversation, because our own eye is seeing show reels. We saw one today. I shouldn't say that really, but just to get to work it. We had multiple ones we had to look at today.
Yeah,
no one could work it out. But within those 5 or 6 that we looked at today, there was at least 2. I wouldn't allow a graduate. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is it. In every other industry, the marks matter because the marks fit the industry. In our industry, on the college level, it doesn't fit because you've tried to give it the same marking as a maths course. But when you go down to the local schools level, there's evidence there is a way to mark down that does fit the industry. Because all of these ISTDs, etc., manage to give a mark that fits. So it's how do we transition that up to a higher level to mark ourselves rather than mark on an academics course's method of marking. it can work, but we need our own version. That could just come from having multiple people mark. So then you've got like a median subjective mark. I think one person marking is a problem because art is subjective, but a collective of 10 people's marks and the middle of all of them is probably then a pretty accurate mark. Because ultimately you're marking on what is an audience going to like. That's the nature of our industry. So as much as art is subjective, the collective opinion, the median of the collective opinion is incredibly important.
It's like when you watch Strictly, there's 5, if there's 3 or 4 judges, you might get one person give a 2, but if the rest are all giving a 7, then it's right. Okay, you can see what the average is here.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, everything comes down to money in the end of the day. If you've got these massive buildings, you've just got to pack them in to, it becomes less and less this whole. I mean, it's a topic in itself, the state of the colleges that that we should talk about in the future, and possibly see if we can get on someone who's actually at a college right now, maybe a principal or someone like that, because I don't know if they know, which seems weird. Or if I was to say to a college principal, look, from the outside, it seems obvious that the bigger everyone's got, the less standard there is, and the more problems in the industry there are, because the more people, unless they're being taught, obviously, the right way, which would be to straight away say, look, what do you want to do? Let's it's all about you coming out the box, which I don't think you can teach right from you can teach right from the start, but they still need their core technique subjects,
I mean, I suspect if you asked the principal for that, if they were willing to be totally truthful, what you'd get back would probably be it's something to do with the temperament of the students, where attention span's gone down. We're now right in the prime of the generation who saw the whole X Factor effect of you can get handed the biggest record deal on a plate. It's a very different generation of kids to the old school.
Yeah.
So giving them an old school approach is never going to work. And I reckon there's probably a bit of a blame game there of the colleges going, well, what we're teaching has always worked. These kids ain't engaging with it. But then the kids are going to go, well, then build us a course that actually works for us. It's not 20 years ago anymore. And it's a middle ground between those two. Because if a college head was to come out with that, I'd be like, I can understand it. There's truth to that. But that's what you're working with. So work with it.
I mean, we know just through dealings with colleges that there is huge red tape, and there is, that you're not allowed to say this anymore. You're not allowed to do that. And when I think back, in some instances, yes, a little bit more professionalism was definitely needed. But I think it's just gone way too far the other way, because yes, when I think back to my own college years, there was definitely things going on that shouldn't be, relationships with students, things like that. That doesn't change the actual teaching. Yes, it was tough. Yes, it was hard knock. It was, but that's what produced results. So
I think there may be something there again in the numbers in the college, because they don't feel cared for. It's then much easier for something to happen where the teachers touched someone or said this, and because you're coming from an angle of they don't care about me, it's then very easy to perceive as an attack. Whereas in your day, because it was individual, you knew they cared. So when something was said, when something was done, you knew the intention because you knew the teacher and the teacher knew you.
Yeah.
Now the student doesn't know the teacher and the teacher doesn't know the student. So actually, it's a dangerous environment because no one feels cared for. So I think even that comes
They're
back
going
to
into it
numbers.
though. The students are going into it not thinking they're going to get that care.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
exactly.
that's not the sell anymore. The sell when I went to bodywork was we're a small college, we're very intensive, it's all a family feel, and it was. And for
Yeah,
me, that was brilliant because I knew they cared about me. I knew if I had an argument with a teacher, it was big news.
yeah.
You know, it wasn't just brushed under the table. It was a massive thing. It had to be dealt with, you know, and they dealt with discipline right there, right then. There was no kind of, you know, procedures or filling out forms. It was just, right, what's happened? Right, don't do that, boom. And it was dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were over it as well. Okay, I
Yeah.
had a massive argument with Boyd, who I think is now the principal of Swindon College or something like that. Amazing teacher, amazing dancer. I was just a prick, basically.
Uh-huh.
And my first couple of lessons with her, you know, it was boiling over. I said something stupid. She said something really rude to me and then sent me out, not as in swearing, but just very how teachers dealt with you in those years. And I remember my first thought was, shit, I've done really bad. I need to get back in that class. It wasn't, I'm going to sue this person. I'm going to tell my mum. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it on social media. It was, you just got over things. And then within the next lesson, apologized. I'm sorry. She said she was sorry, that it happened, the argument happened. And we moved on and we had a great relationship for the next 3 years, And I know if I saw her now, we'd probably laugh about our first, I think it was literally the first class, I said something and she took the piss out of me.
Uh-huh.
Like absolutely took the piss out of me. But that was it. That was the way things got dealt with. Kids today, they just can't handle any type of slap on the wrist.
But I think it stems from not having a relationship with the teachers. For example, in your day, if you got a correction from your ballet teacher, let's say, you'd be getting that every week. So you develop a relationship where you go, I know this ballet teacher cares about me and wants me to improve. They're coming and giving me a correction every week. Whereas actually nowadays, when you walk into a class that teacher's not even acknowledged your existence for the past 10 lessons, and for some reason today they've decided to focus right in on you and hands all over you, corrections left, right and centre, criticising this, criticising that, suddenly you feel attacked because you're not even used to getting recognised. And suddenly you're the focus of attention. And that's where it's changed. There's no consistency because there's too many people for it to be consistent. So it's like a teacher has to just pick either a few people to focus on all the time, then they're accused of favouritism, or they can focus on a few people a lesson, then those people are triggered by being focused on because they didn't exist for the past 10 weeks. It's all spiraled out of control because there's so many people.
Fucking move it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh dear. Watch our first ever episode, and you can hear a little bit more about Move It, how the growth of competition between the colleges has basically been this whole catalyst that has created this massive kind of this whole, I mean, there's so many colleges, it's unbelievable.
It's mental the way it's grown. It's so out of control.
Which is fine if you are teaching them the philosophy of, right, here, you're going to learn your technique and then you're going to learn to become yourself and you're going to go out there, out of the box and do your own thing. But if you're being taught just to, here's your technique and here's the way, auditions, this is the only thing, you have to do what everyone else is doing because the teachers haven't ever been out of the box. So yeah, it's I wouldn't send my son, if my son wanted to become a dancer, I wouldn't send him to a dance college. Why not?
No, that's it. We had this conversation last season, but when I have kids, if they wanted to go into dance, I'd be saying, get down to London and mimic how they train in LA. I really do think right now that is the best route.
Yeah.
Because the colleges have just gone out of control. the standards are slipping because it's gone out of control.
It's a funny old topic. It's easy for us to talk about because we can see it. Colleges are in it, and what it's like once you're at a college. It's day-to-day red tape. It's relentless. And do they really care about the end product in the end? When you've got so many, you're guaranteed. It's like they're hedging the bets. When you've only got 8 going out from a year group, you are really hoping that they do work because it will look bad. Like you said, I think you said so. When you've got 100, you're going to get a few successes. So,
yeah.
Let's maybe scrap the this is the ratio, and just put in, well, we've got Bubba in this, and we've got da who's just got into Magic Mike, and this person's dancing for Dua Lipa. Boom, that's it. You only need 3 or 4 examples from a year group of 200, and people think it's a successful college.
Well, that's it. When you've got 100 people in a year group, you could actually get the quantity of a year group in your era working every single year. And that is the fascinating angle. Probably getting just as many people working right now as they were in your day. But they've got a whole lot more failures now than they ever had in your day. In your day, pretty much everyone worked for at least a period.
Yes.
Now, I'd say the statistic is probably the majority never work.
Well, there was 8 of us. I know definitely me and Charlotte obviously worked. Caroline Flack obviously worked. Peter Hillier, he went on to become Mr. BB, CBBB, or whatever it was. Thingy Pete, his name was, on BBC for a long time. I'm not sure he's doing anything now, performance-wise, or I think he's into fitness training now. And then there was Anna, who I think might be a wedding planner now. I don't know, but she's definitely, I haven't seen her in the industry. And then maybe there was a couple others who just nothing happened. So, but for a long time, there was me, Charlotte, Peter, Caroline, who were doing it to a very high standard, a very high level. You had three there out of 8 who had TV careers. So, yeah. I don't know. It's a whole new ball game of bullshit, basically, because it's like, it's like when we get invited to these shows, I sit there thinking, what the fuck am I doing there? What am I doing there? And I see these other agents, and they're like smiling at me, thinking, I'm not one of you. I'm not one of you. Okay, I am not sitting here thinking, oh, this is really important. I'm thinking, why has Bailey talked me into going?
That'll be right. For me, it's important to go to be able to have this conversation, basically.
Yes.
You've got to observe it to then be able to criticise it.
I'm sitting there thinking, I've just failed in life. That I'm sitting here at this point at my age, like, it's just, knowing I'm never pleasantly surprised. This is the thing. I'm never pleasantly surprised. It's always getting worse and worse and worse and worse. The college shows are. And people there are like, oh my God, wasn't it amazing? Wasn't it great? I'm like, did you just see the same show? Like,
it's interesting. I had one the other day. I'm not going to say which college on here because I don't want to individual. But I was pleasantly surprised that it was better than I was expecting, but still weren't the standard I would have expected of that college 5 years ago. Which initially coming out, I was like, oh, that was actually way better than I expected. That was good. Then a few days reflection, I was like, but the scary thing is that's still not good compared to how good it should be.
Should be phenomenal. You should be, this is them at their peak. You've been dancing for 3 years solid. We should be saying, wow. And I remember, watching previous graduation shows of bodywork and ones afterwards thinking, bloody hell, these dancers are fantastic. They've got loads of boys. I remember years ago when I went to a Doreen Bird College graduation show, thinking, fucking hell, this is brilliant. The boys and everyone was fantastic. Now I'm like, I don't know why I'm turning up. There's no one here who's ready for anything. And then I'm looking and seeing teachers who are clearly not, I don't know, way overweight, not looking inspirational. It'd be like, I don't know, going to, football training and your coach is just unable to kick the ball or whatever. I don't know. It's just.
I'll come back to Mark Webb. What was always great about Mark's classes is Mark would always be able to outdance every single one of us, no matter how good we got.
Yeah.
And that's where you've got a teacher that you go in, I can see what I need to be. I'm not just getting information given to me. But I can see it, and you can still do that after, must be at least a 30-year career Mark's had at this point, is phenomenal. That is inspirational. Stuart Arnold used to still be able to slide down into splits when he was teaching me. Yeah, he taught you when you were at college.
Yes.
That's what a dance teacher should be.
Well, I mean,
you wouldn't have like a teacher at uni teaching you accounting that can't do accounting anymore.
No.
I think that's a real call for our industry.
I mean, to have someone like Mark Webb, he was a phenomenal doctor. He was. And they don't lose it. They don't, it's not often when they're that good that they lose it dramatically.
Yeah.
Because it becomes more about, the experience that Mark Webb had as a dancer. He did everything. Everything every day for years.
Exactly.
He was part of a group of dancers that were doing everything. Him, Christian Storm, and that lot at that point were killing it. So to have him as a teacher, but you say Stuart Arnold, I mean, he was old when he taught me, and he was phenomenal. And you're talking the same how I would have talked about him 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Are we even? Is it even worth us talking about? Really? Like, are we missing the boat that no, colleges are just turning into something different? Are we expecting too much for colleges to be like how we feel they should be?
Well, there still is an industry for what we want, but there isn't also an industry for what they're creating. So it pains me to say this on the end of a whole conversation about oversaturation, but actually what it really presents is there's a whole open market for a new genre of colleges that's needed. We need both sets. The students getting lost in this world because they actually fit this one better. We need both. It's not that it's changed, it's split. I think is the core to it.
Yeah. I mean, if we had this kind of split back in the day, I would just, I know this sounds horrible. I know it sounds like it could make out that what I'm saying would make me a bad person. But I could see, if we were 25 years ago, the straight boys definitely would have took the absolute fucking piss out of, there just wasn't fat dancers. There wasn't dancers who weren't of a high standard. We would have been like, what the hell are you? I mean, I remember going into auditions with, and it was always the straight boys. We were cocky, we were arrogant, we were going in to get that bloody job. And if there was someone who was not peak fitness, we would use that against them. Come on out, Faye. And I know that sounds bad. I wouldn't do that now because I'm a spiritual, God-fearing person now. But back in the day, if we could smell blood, we would take that blood. Do you know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
This guy's out of weight. This guy he can only do a few pirouettes. He can't get his legs up. Get out of the way. Like it would be brutal. I mean, I think about like, you know, people like Darren Agile in auditions. He would just take the piss if people weren't good enough because people were of such a high level.
I mean, I think this
And
is the X Factor effect that I kind of touched on. In your day, you all wanted to fight for it.
mm,
My era, because of X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, The Voice, etc., we're so used to seeing the good person get given the opportunity that we don't feel like we have to fight anymore.
mm,
It like there's this whole mantle of if it's meant for you, it'll come to you. And I think that's what we kind of rely on now.
mm.
The media in our childhood has educated us. If you're good enough, they'll find you. Not if you're good enough, go and get yourself fucking found. Which is like the attitude you had. It's like we've had an opposite education, which again is a mentality issue.
I'm holding on to what you said at the start, that things go round and it will be like a trend and you will need it for the future because, you know, they're as well as you saying that, you've said before, and we've spoke about, and it's out there in sort of the media about strong men create, what is it?
Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men again.
That's the one. We've actually had this conversation in a podcast, Isaac, before, where I've said it's, you know when you said the hard man thing, and then you've said it exactly. That's it. It's going to come back. You know, we're going. Eventually, people are going to go, oh yeah, being a big dancer is actually unhealthy. It's a lack of respect for yourself. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, even the X Factor effect. We're not in that era of media anymore. We're now in an era of media that actually what's highlighted is the ones who went on X Factor and failed and fucked up their lives.
Yeah.
So it's like actually the current kids that are like 7, 8, 9 years old being inspired to go and dance. When I was that age getting inspired, I was watching X Factor and going, oh, if you're good enough, you get given it. The ones now watching that at that age, who are our generation in 10 years' time, are going, oh, thinking you're going to get given it on a plate is a mistake because their lives go to shit. Right, I must make sure I don't do that, and they'll come out fighting again.
Yes.
It's like we've almost just got to wait for the next generation to present where that issue's no longer there.
Well, there you go. What a topic that is. You know, should performers who are not allowed to graduate? I would love to hear what other people have got on this. Do you know what I mean? I'd love to see any comments down below. What do you think? You know, do you care? Are you from a college? You know, do you have an opinion on this? It'd be great to talk to. It'd be great to have a panel. You know, to be able to. Maybe that's something we could do in the future as a different podcast. So we have me and you doing our nerdy chats. No one watching. We have our guest ones, people like, and then maybe we could have a panel debate where we give the awkward questions and just see what people say. It could be a good idea. Look at that, an idea born right there out of this topic. Well, we were going to do 2 topics today. We're trying. We always say, right, let's keep each topic small. Yeah. But I had this feeling that the moment we ever did this topic, it was going to go on for a long. So I think we wanted to, but we didn't. The reason we wanted 2 topics, a second one to this one, because we thought it was too heavy.
That's it. I'm just very conscious to not wanting our episodes to just always feel like we're attacking people, because I don't want it to be like that.
Are we attacking people there? I suppose. See, you say that. I'm more conscious of the people being too worried and too triggered. You know, can people take this type of conversation anymore? I don't know, but you know, it's what we're saying, what we're talking. But we've definitely talked for long enough that I don't think we have enough time for our second topic. So maybe we'll do that in another week.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, well, why don't you say something so it doesn't feel as, why don't you give a positive spin on it to finish it off?
A positive spin on the graduate thing.
Yeah, there's got, well, I suppose the positive spin is that things do go on cycles and,
Well,
you know,
yeah. I mean, I guess the positive spin is the observation we started to come to with Dax.
mm,
What is realistically the most recent college has a different approach.
mm,
That conversation we had with Dax is almost the start of a new era of colleges, particularly being base, having massive standing in the industry right now.
yeah.
They have the power and authority to lead a new wave of colleges. So potentially that's the positive. We're literally on the precipice of this conversation not needing to be had. Base is emerging out in that space of we're going to lead this in the right direction. We understand the red tape. We understand what needs to be kept. We're not pushing the lines. I don't want to trigger people. I don't want to cause mental health issues. But there's elements for the good and potential of your career that we do need to bring back in the right way. And I think Dax is going to be an innovator in that. So I guess the positive is Dax exists. Base exists.
We are willing. It was like, we are willing for Dax and pushing for Dax. I mean, he might not be thinking, but we're pushing him to be the correct type of college and pushing other people. We want these new colleges to emerge because I don't think the old college. I think the old colleges are just they're too big now. They're too big and they've been taken over by the universities. And yeah, I think we got to encourage people like Dax and support him to be more realistic with the students, so
and that's it, daring to carry out his own vision. Like potentially we don't agree on everything with Dax and Dax doesn't agree on everything with us,
no,
but a lot of it we're on the same path and at least he has a different idea.
yes.
I think that's the core. We're not trying to sit here saying we're always right, but there will always be a truth in there of if we're talking something needs to change, even if the suggestion we give of the change isn't correct.
Well, this is it. You've got to have the conversation, and us having this conversation. I'm not saying everyone's going to watch it, but if we're saying it and we're thinking it, then other people will be. Perhaps they haven't got a podcast, but people will be thinking of it. And once people start to think it, then that's the first step to the next steps, which are action and change. Because we're in agreement, aren't we? That it has to change. Just going back on I suppose what we talked about at the very, very start, which was we were talking about the podcast and Dax and stuff like that. If you haven't watched Dax's I think the second episode, the first episode is great because we learned so much about him, that we didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. I've known him nearly all my life. Apart from the first 10, 15 years, I met him when he was 15, must have been 15 or 16. And I had no idea about most of his career. But the second one was definitely more kind of, it's one.
But it's more current.
Yes. Dancers should be watching that. They should be watching that. They should be. I'm not saying that to get views on our podcast because, that, hey, we're gonna one day we'll have millions of views. So we know we'll get there. But I think I said it to him. Every dancer should be on. If I knew, I mean, back in the day, if Debbie from Pineapple would have put out something, or the owner of Danceworks, or the owner of Dance Attic, I would have been fascinated. Wow, I need to know. But I think a lot of dancers, they don't care, and they don't see that there is structure to the industry if you allow it to be structured.
Well, that's it. It's understanding that good business is knowing your market. which comes back to something I've said before. I think I said it in Danielle's episode as a question to her of, we're always told as dancers that we have to act like a business, but we're never told what acting like a business means. That's a key factor to it, knowing the conversation in the industry, knowing the opinions that exist.
Yeah.
Knowing your market, having something to connect with people on.
This was one of the secrets of me and Charlotte. At that time, we knew everyone who was running the agencies. We knew every dancer. We knew every choreographer. We might not know them personally, but we knew who was what and where was what. Mm-hmm. I knew that even as a dancer. As a dancer, I remember thinking, right, I had lists of pieces of paper, Charlotte more than me, lists of these are the choreographers, these are the agents, these are the casting directors, this person is the production company, these are the dancers. We knew. Mm-hmm. I don't think people really care anymore. They're just sort of aimlessly going, hoping that auditions will come back and just, I don't know. Hopefully, there's a plate. Thank you very much.
Well, I was going to say it is again a handed on a plate, because that's the spotlight thing. You don't need to know the production companies and the agencies and all of that when you've got spotlight in your email going, here's every job in the industry. You don't have to go and look for it. You don't have to know anyone. Well, you do to book it, but there's a facade painted that you don't, because it feels like it's coming with an invite to apply for.
Well, where's my ending? Before we end, I just wanted to say, if you haven't seen our latest guest episodes, then click the links below to see episodes with Christina Andrea, Dax O'Callaghan, Ian Bannon, and more. What are you saying, Bailey?
Before we leave off, please remember to subscribe to the channel, especially this episode, because with Muir channel, so even if you subscribe to the Three Rings podcast, you're not going to be getting that anymore unless you subscribe here. So please do. Drop us a like on the video. Turn on the notification bell so you know about the next episode. And to rewind back to the start, we're very much looking at the format at the moment. What type of content do you want to see? What do you want from us? So do let us know in the comments what you want, and then we can listen to it and act upon that. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week.
Cheers, Bailey. See you guys. See you next week.